Hello everybody, my name is Phil. I'm Executive Director of Coaching Ourselves. It's my great pleasure to be here today with all of you. Really this is a big honor, so thank you very much for listening to me and spending the time here with me. You know, when I first met Nao-san and J-Feel, I really had no idea that one day I would have a chance to be here in Japan and speak with all of you. You know, very, very much a great honor. So I thank you very much. I'm very, very pleased and very happy. And Coaching Ourselves, the way it's expanding here in Japan and throughout the rest of the world, it's really amazing to see. So thank you very much. Back when I started Coaching Ourselves, I was a director, that's a manager of managers, at a software company. I was just a middle manager, and that was around 2003, 2004, and it was a very, very low point in our industry, the dot-com crash, and we were going through a lot of problems. The whole industry was going through a lot of problems back then. Our organization that I worked for, we were eventually acquired by a larger organization. And they had, of course, a very different culture from the culture of the small company that we had worked with. As one would expect, especially during that period of time, very quickly there was layoffs. I remember they came to me and they asked me, you know, we have to let go of literally 50% of the team at that point in time. So very, very, very tough situation for those who remained. You can imagine how we all felt, myself included. We were scared. I mean, it was just scary. We didn't know what was going on. We didn't know what was going to happen next. And we weren't sure, how am I going to make the changes? We knew we had to make some changes to get going, to survive through this. And eventually we had to get back to that feeling that we had before, to start enjoying ourselves, to make great products, and to, you know, let's go, let's make something. And so we were trying to figure out, how are we going to do this? And I remember my managers at the time, they would come to me and they would say, you know, what are we going to do now, Phil? How are we going to get through this? We've just lost half our team. We've been acquired by this other company. And they would come to me, and they used to be team leaders, all of them. And now all of a sudden they had to manage offshore developers. We had these new team members in the Ukraine, and none of us spoke any Ukrainian. So it was very, very difficult, of course. So now I remember discussing this with my managers. We sort of got together and thinking about this, and I remember thinking, you know, it would be good if we had some new management skills. Perhaps we could do some management development programs at the time. I thought at least that's one way to try to help figure out where we have to go. If we're going to spend time, I figured in my head, if we're going to spend time doing management development, then we'd better get, you know, talk about our own problems, talk about our own issues, and get closer to solving the problems that we have to solve, that we really have to solve now. And we had some really serious. So I'm sitting there in my office, and I'm sort of mulling this over, wondering what to do. Now remember, back then, you know, I didn't know much about Professor Henry Mintzberg. You know, I knew Henry, right? And Henry was this very nice, very pleasant university professor that my mom had married. So I said, you know what? Maybe I'll ask him. Maybe he knows, you know, he might have some ideas on what I can do about all this, because I need some help. I need some new input. So Henry suggested I gather the team on the regular basis. We share the reflections, and we do it on a week-to-week basis. And so I said, hey, well, maybe you can get some material for us, some learning material. We'd like something to get the conversation going, some new ideas. And so working with these other management thinkers, Henry started to get us the material, and I would work in the evenings then, and I would translate this material, as I called it, into a format that we could use just as the group, because better managers and better at managing if we just spend a little bit of our time every week on a regular basis learning about managers, learning about managing, reflecting on what had happened, what we did, sharing our experiences, and our different perspectives. And if we could just do that a little bit, then the other 39 hours a week, it'll probably be a little easier managing. You get that, you start going forward, you start doing one session after the other, and then some interesting things start happening, or at least they did for me, and I've seen them happen for other groups. Certainly as individual managers, you start changing, you're reflecting a bit more, you start to think about what you're doing, why you're doing, because you have the space to do it, and you have your colleagues to share these experiences, and you have, of course, these topics that are sort of inspiring these discussions, and they're making you ask questions from these different angles. I remember sort of some of the discussions you'd have, you know, you might start with something simple. You say, hey, this topic, it makes me, you know, look at some aspect of management, and then it makes me think about what I did last week. I don't know, perhaps I had some guy and I don't know, he was late on his project, and I had to motivate him to get back on track, so to speak. And then somebody else would say, you know what? Because this is one of my colleagues, they say, you know, I also had a similar problem like that last week, and this is what I did. And then you start comparing, and you start saying, well, why didn't you try that? You know, I did this, and this is what happened. And this sort of discussion and sharing of real experiences, this becomes really, really helpful, and you start to learn from that, and it makes you think more. And then, of course, you're doing that, and the next step is obvious, right? Because you're talking about your real problems. Then you start thinking, well, maybe I should do something different. Maybe next week, I should do something different. Or maybe with this guy, I'll go back to him and I'll say, hey, you know what? Why don't we look at the problem like this? And so you're learning and you're starting to change and starting to inspire, at least us and our team, and I've seen all the other groups, it starts to get you to do different things on a week-to-week basis between sessions. Little things, but things nonetheless. Slowly over time, we solved the problem that originally motivated us. Remember coaching ourselves? We started it because there had been layoffs, because we no longer had energy, because we were no longer sort of into the, you know, the world had changed on us. So eventually, through all this discussion, we learned to stop complaining. We learned to stop, you know, saying, oh, the company doesn't understand that, and it's somebody else's problem. And we learned to say, no, it's up to us. It's up to us to change. And then we started getting excited again, and that was very powerful for us. Well, now in coaching ourselves, you're doing that, but at the same time, you're with your other colleagues. And they're also having experiences, but you're sharing them, and you're listening to their perspectives, and you're hearing their perspectives on your experiences. And as you go through that, sort of, I don't know if I can say, but sort of speeds up the process a little bit. It certainly helps you as you go through everything. You come to see the experiences from other people's perspectives, and you reflect on, you know, the many things that work for yourself. So I just think, and this was really important for us in coaching ourselves, and when we started, you have to have fun too, right? It's not all deadpan serious all the time. I remember when we first started coaching ourselves, we didn't really know if it was actually going to work. We were saying, well, we're going to get together, we're going to try it out. So we figured no matter what happens, at least we're going to laugh and we're going to smile. And people used to walk by my office at the time, you know, and we had these glass, there was not the walls, it was just glass doors and stuff. And people would see us in there and we'd be laughing because we'd be sharing these experiences about, you know, I did this and I can't believe that the guy said this as we're sharing these experiences. So you make sure that you have fun, and that was sort of one of the most important things for us, at least, about making the process work. So thank you all very much, and I wish you all the best with coaching ourselves.